Magic Calabash, a story of gratitude. In a small village nestled between rolling hills and a sparkling river, there lived a poor woman named Amina. Amina was known for her kind heart and gentle spirit, but her life was a constant struggle. Each day, she would rise before dawn to tend to her small garden, hoping that her crops would flourish enough to provide her with food for the day. Despite her hard work, Amina often went to bed hungry, her stomach rumbling like distant thunder. The village was a close-knit community, where people relied on each other for support. Amina had friends, but they too were struggling, and often they would share what little they had. On many evenings, Amina would invite her neighbors over for a simple meal of boiled yams and vegetables, always managing to stretch her resources to feed anyone who came to her door. One day, while foraging for wild berries in the forest, Amina stumbled upon an old, gnarled tree that twisted and turned like the tales of old. The air around it was thick with magic, and as she approached, she noticed a strange object nestled between its roots. It was a beautifully carved calabash, intricately adorned with swirling patterns that glimmered in the sunlight. Curious, Amina picked it up and examined it closely, feeling a warm energy emanating from the vessel. As she held the calabash, a soft voice whispered from within, "I am the Magic Calabash. Speak your wish, and I shall fulfill it." Remembering her empty stomach, she whispered, "I am hungry. Please, fill this calabash with food." To her amazement, the calabash began to shimmer, and within moments, it was filled to the brim with steaming rice, succulent meat, and colorful vegetables. Amina's eyes widened in disbelief as she marveled at the delicious feast before her. From that day forward, Amina visited the calabash whenever she felt hungry, and it never failed to provide her with an abundance of food. As weeks passed, Amina's fortunes changed. She began to share her food with her neighbors, inviting them to her home to enjoy the meals prepared from the magical calabash. The villagers, who had once looked down upon her for her poverty, now came to appreciate her kindness and generosity. Word spread throughout the village about Amina and her magical calabash. People traveled from distant lands to hear her story, and she welcomed them all with open arms. The once lonely woman was now surrounded by friends, laughter, and love. Children laughed as they played around her home, and Amina found joy in their innocence and laughter. With her newfound prosperity, Amina decided to use some of her food to help others in her village. She began a small community kitchen, where anyone in need could come for a warm meal. The elderly, the sick, and the families struggling to make ends meet would gather at her home, filling it with warmth and laughter. Amina's community kitchen became a symbol of hope. People who had once been strangers formed friendships over shared meals, and the bonds between them grew stronger. Amina loved to hear their stories and share her own, creating an atmosphere of unity. One day, a young man named Tund visited Amina's kitchen. He was a talented musician but had fallen on hard times, unable to find work. Moved by the warm meal and Amina's kindness, he decided to perform for her and the villagers. As he played his lute, the sweet melodies filled the air, and everyone clapped along, their hearts lifted by the music. Amina smiled as she watched her community flourish, their spirits lifting with every gathering. "If only I could always have the calabash by my side," she thought, feeling grateful for the magic that had transformed her life. However, as time went on, Amina's heart began to change. With each feast she hosted, she found herself reveling in the attention and admiration of her neighbors. The magical calabash had brought her happiness, but it had also planted the seeds of greed within her heart. One evening, as she sat by the calabash after a grand feast, she thought to herself, "What if I could have even more? What if I could fill the calabash with food for every day of the year?" The desire for more began to consume her thoughts, overshadowing her gratitude. The next morning, instead of simply asking for enough food for herself and her neighbors, Amina whispered to the calabash, "Fill with food for 100 people. I want to be the most celebrated woman in the village." The calabash shimmered once more, but this time it overflowed with food beyond her wildest dreams. There were mountains of rice, rivers of soup, and piles of fruits. Amina's heart raced with excitement as she realized she could have all this for herself. As Amina began to host even larger feasts, her generosity slowly transformed into greed. She wanted to impress the villagers, wanting them to see her as a queen of abundance. Her gatherings grew lavish, filled with decorations and entertainment. But with every feast, she also began to neglect her old friends who had once been her only source of comfort. The more she indulged, the more empty she felt inside. The village, which had once thrived on love and gratitude, began to drift apart, fueled by Amina's obsession with status and recognition. People whispered, "Amina has forgotten where she came from. She no longer shares her blessings with us." One evening, during a particularly extravagant feast, Amina overheard two of her closest friends talking. "Remember when Amina used to sit with us and share her stories?" one said. "Now she's lost in her wealth." Stung by their words, Amina dismissed them, focusing on the applause and admiration of her guest. One fateful evening, Amina prepared for yet another grand feast. She had invited the entire village, and the calabash overflowed with food. But as the sun began to set and the guests arrived, she noticed that something was wrong. The villagers were distant, their faces drawn and tired. Instead of laughter, there was an uncomfortable silence. Suddenly, as if sensing her turmoil, the calabash began to tremble and shake. Food spilled onto the ground, and the once vibrant dishes turned stale and unappetizing. Confused and frightened, Amina grasped the calabash and begged, "Please, fill with food. I need this feast." But the calabash remained empty, a mere shell of its former self. Realization washed over her like a cold wave. The magic had faded, and it was her own greed that had caused it. With renewed determination, Amina decided to return to the old tree where she had found the calabash. She knew she had to apologize and ask for guidance. As she knelt before the ancient tree, she held the empty calabash close to her heart and whispered, "I have learned my lesson. Please, grant me one more chance to share my blessings." Suddenly, a gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the tree, and the calabash began to glow faintly. Slowly, it filled with food once again, but this time, Amina knew what to do. She returned to the village, not to throw extravagant feasts, but to share the food in smaller, intimate gatherings where everyone could come together. Amina focused on gratitude, sharing not just food but also stories and laughter with her neighbors. She remembered the names of each villager, inquiring about their lives and dreams. With every shared meal, the bonds between the villagers grew stronger, and a sense of unity returned. The children laughed as they played around her home, and the elders shared their wisdom, passing down stories of their ancestors. The village that had once been torn by jealousy and distance was now thriving once more. Realizing the importance of connection, Amina initiated a tradition called the Day of Sharing. On this day, the villagers would come together to share not only food but also talents, stories, and experiences. Musicians like tongue performed their heartwarming melodies, while storytellers captivated the audience with tales of old. Each villager brought something to share, reinforcing the spirit of community and gratitude. As the years went by, Amina's community kitchen became a sanctuary for those in need. She started a program where children could come and learn to cook, passing on the skills she had learned from her mother. The kitchen became a place of laughter, where young and old gathered to prepare meals together, instilling the values of sharing and love. In the heart of the village, Amina established a small garden, where everyone could contribute and cultivate fresh vegetables. It became a symbol of unity, a testament to the strength that came from working together. With each harvest, they would gather to celebrate, cooking meals with the produce and inviting the entire village to partake. As Amina watched the village flourish, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The Magic Calabash, once a source of temptation, had transformed into a vessel of love and connection. Its presence reminded everyone of the lessons learned, the importance of humility, generosity, and the power of gratitude. As Amina grew older, she began to pass down the story of the Magic Calabash to her children and grandchildren. They learned to appreciate the beauty of generosity and gratitude, ensuring that the spirit of sharing would live on for generations to come. Amina shared not only the tale of her struggles but also the joy of community, emphasizing the importance of lifting each other up. The calabash, now a treasured heirloom, was kept in the center of the village as a reminder of the lessons learned. Whenever someone felt greedy or selfish, they would gather around the calabash, listen to Amina's story, and reflect on the importance of humility. One day, as Amina sat surrounded by her grandchildren, she shared her favorite lesson: true wealth is not in what we possess but in what we share. The more we give, the richer our lives become. The children listened intently, their eyes wide with wonder, and as the sun set behind the hills, they promised to carry on the legacy of kindness and gratitude. As time passed, Amina's story became a cherished folktale in the village. And so, the story of Amina and her magic calabash echoed through the ages, a timeless tale of humility, strength, and the true meaning of abundance. Hope you enjoyed this beautiful folktale, and if you will need more, please kindly subscribe for more. And thanks for watching.